pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for January 29th, 2018. Great weekend of FA Cup, but a news that broke Friday afternoon is catching our attention in the first segment today to talk about TFC2 playing 4 games in Rochester. Jeff Veronica of the Rochester DNC Sports Writer. How you doing, Jeff?
Terrific. How you doing, fellas?
Good, Jeff. Let's just start with what's happening here. Why is TFC2 playing 4 games in Rochester this year? Can you explain to people why this needs to happen?
Well, you guys might have more information than I do why TFC would want to farm out some of its home games, but the Rhinos have gone, the Rochester Rhinos, 22 years, one of the big brands in USL, obviously has had some ownership issues the last few years, not drawing many fans. Their owners, who are about to start their 3rd year, have decided not to field the team this year. They let Bob Lilly, their coach, Hall of Fame coach, out of his contract. He's now coaching in Pittsburgh. And so they're not playing this year. So in order for the owners, David and Wendy Dworkin, to fulfill their lease to continue, which is this will be year 3 of a 10-year lease, to operate the stadium. The lease is written that they need to hold, quote, pro soccer in that facility. And the lease doesn't quantify Rochester Rhinos, doesn't say Rochester Rhinos on it. It doesn't say how many matches. It says they need to be a member in good standing with a professional soccer league, which they are, because the USL has granted them a 1 year of stay of execution and whatever, that they're a member still. And they're part of the USL, just not feeling a team right now. And so they're going to play 4 matches here involving TFC and other teams, such as the Pittsburgh Riverhounds and Indy 11. And it's a way for the owners to hold on to the lease, the operating lease, if they want to bring the Rhinos back in 2019. They're still the operator of the stadium here. So it's kind of a means to an end to hold on to the operating lease with the stadium. And I think the USL wants to be a good partner here. And I'm curious as to why TFC would want to do this. I know that they only average about 1,100 fans at their matches, if that. And
if that,
why would they want to play 4 matches here? I don't know.
Well, yeah, that is a good question. I guess what I ask you right now is, amongst the Rochester soccer community, is there any excitement about this? Do you think they'll get 1,100 fans to watch these games, or is this just sort of them doing the bare minimum to make sure that they fulfill this lease?
I think they'd get less than 500 fans to these matches. Number one, they were having trouble. They had trouble getting 1,100 fans at their own matches last year. And now you're going to bring in 2 teams and neither one of them has Rochester Rhinos on it. And it's not like you're bringing in Freddie Adu or some draw that, I don't know. They're doing it. This was done quite simply to hold on to the operating lease. It was not done. I think the more questions as to why TFC would do it. Maybe TFC is doing this because it wants to be a good partner with the USL. Somebody called me over the weekend and floated the idea that maybe TFC was going to try this out and they were going to have TFC2 maybe in 2019 play all of its matches in Rochester, and basically TFC2 would become the Rochester Rhinos. And I don't know what the benefit of that would be to TFC, the big club, because I would think you'd want your young players able to watch them on a daily basis in practice, certainly in matches, rather than have to drive 2.5 hours or more to Rochester to watch them play.
Well, in 2018, TFC2 is trying a new way to do basically their USL team, moving to Lamport Stadium, BMO Field for a few games, and the 4 games in Rochester. Just to address what you were saying, Jeff, there will be some renovation at Lamport Stadium this summer, as well as rugby occupation of the stadium by the Toronto Wolfpack. Now, in the second division of rugby league in England. But so there is other dispute with the scheduling of the stadium that would maybe explain TFC2's decision to play those 4 games in Rochester. But when we look at those decisions,
but I would think that.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
This is not. I mean, but these matches, I don't think the parent club, Toronto FC, cares how many people are at the matches. Do they? I mean, do they? They're not looking at this as a moneymaker. They're looking at this as strictly development, right? So why would you want to?
It's a reaction to
2.5 hours away.
It's a reaction to probably them having an issue of not having a place to play and killing 2 birds with 1 stone, saying, look, you guys need to host some games. We might need 1 or 2 games to be play somewhere else. So maybe we can come to an agreement where we'll give you a hand with your lease situation, and we have a place to play when Lamport is getting renovated or occupied by the Wolfpack, and BMO Field is not available. So that's my hypothesis. But this brings me to this question, Jeff. All the moves recently of the Rhinos basically is to buy themselves 1 year more before an actual decision is made. The key has not been turned into the door, and the door's not locked, and it's not belly up yet. That decision has been postponed basically 12 months, with all the decision of not fielding a team, but still retaining the rights and a USL franchise, basically, and with wanting them not to break that lease as well, which are the 2 key components to potential Rhinos return.
I'd say it's less than 50% chance the Rhinos will return. I think this market needs to go dark for a few years. I think then the city has to figure out how much it wants to help subsidize that stadium even more. Problem with that stadium, guys, is it was built in an area. It's only a half a block from where they used to play, or half a mile from where they used to play. But there are a lot of white suburbanites in our community that don't want to come down to the inner city and watch soccer. And it's sad, but that's the truth. That I've heard from enough of them. I've seen enough posts on social media to say people don't think it's in a safe area. So the city of Rochester, it's going to be incumbent upon them to figure out what to do with an empty building. Right now, I think that, I don't think David and Wendy Dworkin, the owners of the Rhinos, bought this. I know they didn't buy them because they were looking to sell this team in a couple of years. They did not. This was not some sort of, they're trying to flip a franchise and make money off of it. But I think that's going to happen. I think they're going to end up probably selling their team's rights, recoup some of the money they've lost, which is probably more than $3 million, and get out of the business of soccer. And so that's what I think is going to happen. I think these matches and holding out of the operating lease was a way to buy more time to either A, firm up your business operation in Rochester and try to get more corporate sponsors, try to get more of a season ticket base. And if you can't do that, buy some more time to sell this franchise, sell the franchise rights.
Yeah.
I don't know what the worth of this franchise will be because there is no coach, there are no players. I don't know what what are you really buying? You're buying a piece of paper that says you're in the USL, I guess, which obviously has value, but certainly not as much if it had Bob Lilly attached to it. In my opinion, one of the best coaches in North America.
Before I throw it back to Duane, I'm going back to a little bit more than 3 years ago when we had you on the Two Solitudes podcast, Jeff, to talk about the Dworkins buying the Rochester Rhinos and how it was a positive feeling at that moment where maybe we can jumpstart that franchise once again. Maybe with this investment of money and the new ownership, we can actually have a back to the glory days of 1999. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but what happened? What went wrong?
Right, yeah,
what happened?
Yeah, that's it's a great question. It's an obvious question. What happened was this. I don't care who bought this franchise. There was enough tarnish on it and rust on it that it was going to be a heavy lift to turn this thing around for anybody. David and Wendy Dworkin are not really known in the soccer community here. And I think it's because of the corrosion and rust and divisiveness that exists in our community and about the stadium, about the team not being the way it used to be. And I think that has made it a much more difficult sell to the corporate partners in Rochester and the businesses. And let's not also forget, our business community isn't as economically strong as it was 20 years ago either. We're still the headquarters of Kodak, and but Kodak isn't what it used to be. Xerox just announced a few days ago that Xerox is vacating its downtown headquarters and moving to Webster, one of our suburbs. So our corporate footprint, Bausch & Lomb, is not what it used to be. Our corporate footprint to support local teams isn't what it used to be. And so I think that was going to be a tough sell for anybody. So while they thought they were connected enough in the corporate community to get support, the soccer community didn't really know who they were. And I don't think the Dworkins built a good enough front office to get back into the soccer circles here in Rochester. And that's their mistake. And they know that. Quite frankly, I've told them that. Because I know a lot of soccer people in town, and I don't think they hired the right people. And then they didn't get rid of some of the people they should have gotten rid of. So I think that was their fault. But I do think whoever it was that bought this franchise was going to have a tough time selling it to the corporate community and to the fan base, because a lot of people just go there and they think, I only see 3,000 people. It's not what it used to be at Frontier Field. It's like going to a restaurant. Maybe the food's still pretty good, but no one's around. There's no atmosphere. There's no one around. So they compare it to what it used to be, and that's a really tough comparison.
It's very sad, Jeff. 2 years ago, Rochester won the NWSL championship with the Western New York Flash. They moved. Now we're looking at this situation. What is the soccer community, the people that do care about soccer in Rochester? What is their feeling right now? Have they just given up, or is there still a passionate sort of like save the crew type thing out there to make sure that the Rhinos survive?
I have a very small segment that is passionate about it. I think a lot of fans felt jilted when we never made it to Major League Soccer. And that was a long time ago. It's a long time to hold on to those feelings. Now the footprint of what the USL has changed. It's not, you're not trying to field teams that can compete with MLS. You're trying to just field good developmental teams, right? So I think that was the first part of being jilted. An ownership change here in 2006, and the old owners left a lot of unpaid bills around town. That created a lot of bad blood. So I think, quite frankly, I think the soccer fans in Rochester have given up on pro soccer in Rochester. A lot of it has to do with the stadium. A lot of it has to do with not having players that are here more than a couple of years at a time. You got to remember, some of the Rhino stars back in the heyday played here, and I say some. I mean, I'm talking about a good 7 to 9 players, 10 players that played here for 5 or more years. People got to know who they were. They became part of our community. It doesn't happen anymore. I mean, this past season, the Rhinos 2017, what could be the last season in the history of the franchise, there were only 2 players left over from the 2015 championship team. Now, why is that? Because the Dworkins didn't want to give Bob Lilly enough money to retain some of those players. Some of those players actually, because of the tenuous situation with ownership, went to other teams after the championship. So that's part of it too. But I think our soccer fans literally have given up on the stadium and on the team. And losing the Flash was another knock, right? So that happened January 6, 2016. We're talking a little over 2 years ago. And to see what they've gone on to do in Carolina is great for them, but it's just another, kind of looking at, it's like when your ex-girlfriend goes on to marry a movie star, right? That's kind of how it feels. Look at what's happened in Toronto. Look what's happened in Montreal. Look what's happened in Seattle. Look what's happened Vancouver. All these franchises that Rochester used to outdraw in the old A-League and the USL, for our fans to sit there and see what's happened in those admittedly bigger cities, it's been very difficult for them to swallow. And I feel that way too, to a degree. I thought one day I'd be covering a Major League Soccer franchise. Didn't happen. So it's a sad truth of what's happened to Rochester.
Jeff, I grew up just north of you, over the lake in Belleville, Ontario. So Rochester, I watched your TV stations my whole life. So I'm cheering for you, but yeah, it sounds sad. So I'm sorry.
No, it needs to go away. Montreal went dark for a year in 1999 and brought it back. Now, is anyone going to come in here with the type of power that Joey Saputo has financially? I don't think so. Maybe the city of Rochester has something up its sleeve. They're upset with it. They say that the Dworkins are going to be in violation of the lease, and they say I'm assuming they must have someone on the hook to take over the stadium, either to buy it or to run it, because they're trying to break the lease with Dworkins. I hope it's somebody with deep pockets. I hope it's somebody that can put some restaurants and bars in that area, something to bring people down there in addition to the ball game, in addition to the soccer match. And that's what it's going to take. The city of Rochester broke a lot of promises. They were going to help revitalize that area, so it wouldn't be an area where people didn't like going to. But for 7 or 8 years, people drove by boarded up houses on the way to that stadium, and they didn't like it. And then if you go watch 7 scoreless ties, like in the last season of Darren Tilley's tenure as coach in 2009, 7 scoreless ties out of 14 home games, that hurts the fan base too. So a perfect storm of bad stuff happened here in Rochester, just as the opposite happened back in the mid-'90s when a perfect storm of great stuff happened here.
Well, you'll always have 1999, so hopefully there's more memories to come. So there you go, Jeff.
Hey, you know what? The Buffalo Bills broke their playoff drought this year. 17 years they hadn't made the playoffs in 17 years. That's the big NFL team. Obviously, everyone roots for here. Maybe the Rhinos can somehow find their way back to prominence. I do, like I said, it's going to have to be a slow and steady climb unless somebody like David Beckham wants to put a minor league soccer team here, which is not going to happen. So.
David Beckham in Rochester. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I know.
All right, Jeff. Thanks very much. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
We're back on Soccer Today. Duane Rollins with myself, Kevin Laramee. No better segue than David Beckham. Thank you for this one, Jeff. David Beckham will be live at noon with a press conference live from Miami, and we'll talk about it in more details tomorrow. We have our correspondent Kartik right over there today. We'll be live at the press conference, and we'll have Kartik Krishnaiyer tomorrow on the show. But Duane, David Beckham, finally happening. 4 years in the making. MLS in Miami for real.
Well, yeah, for 4 years later. And, if you gave us more Patreon, I could have been live down there. Kevin
we
and
tried.
Today
We tried. But no $5,000 pay pledge came in through the weekend. So
alas, there we are. No, look, it's real now, I guess. So now they have to find fans. So I don't know what to think about this Miami franchise. Miami is a tough sports market.
You mean outside of the 4 guys that were hired in 2014 to be there? Those guys with the blue and black scarves? Yeah. Those guys are like, what? Oh, okay, I need to hold the scarf? What is this? Oh, okay, so you never really watched soccer before, right?
Well, what's funny about this is the FC Miami fans. They're kind of they got that NASL thing going on. So there's this whole resistance towards them.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. I don't know if this is going to work, but Miami is a sexy market. There is no doubt about that. David Beckham is
a sexy owner. He's a sexy owner. Let's put it this way: a sexy owner in the sexy market.
Yeah, I've heard from my female friends that he's an attractive man, I guess.
Look at his bone structure. You can tell, fine, okay, I wish I was born like David Beckham, fine. Wish I could bend it like Beckham.
I wish I could bend it like Beckham. There you go. So don't clip that. But anyway.
Yeah, and don't watch that movie. It's terrible.
It's going to be an interesting phenomenon, but it'd be good for Orlando. I get why they want to be in Miami. It's a good market. There's just a lot of doubt about whether they can make this happen. But there's MLS history, of course, in Miami as well. So here we go. It's going to be
the Fusion that were belly up. Yeah.
Well, the Fusion and the Mutiny.
Mutiny is the one I was. Yeah, the Mutiny was the one I was thinking about.
Well, that's Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Tampa Bay Mutiny. Of course, Buccaneers, Mutiny ship makes sense. But we'll talk about more details tomorrow. But Other news, and we're saving U20s for a little later because I imagine Duane's gonna go on a rant, so I want to keep it keep it maybe for its own block. But great FA Cup weekend. I have to say this fourth round had a few matches that were interesting, and I was telling you off air, like there's a few scores that I knew before watching games on Saturday after the fact on my DVR. But there's one I didn't. I'm like, oh, okay, let's throw this one on. It'll be interesting. A League Two side, Newport County, in their small stadium in 12 miles close to Cardiff. Like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Against Tottenham Hotspurs, that's going to be a trashing. That's going to be a blowout. Wow, I want to watch that. What I got was one of the most riveting games I've seen in a long time. A League Two side build of semi-pro/pro players that maybe all themselves together doesn't even have like a $50,000 or $100,000 wages per year, never mind per week like Tottenham, and they held their own. The pitch was terrible, but it's fine. They played Route 1, put the ball in the air, put their tallest physical guy there, gamesmanship, falling down, faking injuries, whatever it took, and they got the job done. They're getting the replay at Wembley against Tottenham.
Why do you have to be like that, Hurricane?
I know, right? Come on, man. Come on. Miss it. Why not miss a sitter for once?
Did you not get the memo? Did you not get the narrative? No, look, I mean, it's so Spursy. Newport County, like you said, this is a team that was in not just the conference. They were in like the conference north.
They were in the conference of the conference.
Yeah, like, come on, man. This is a spectacular story. And I was telling you off air, I actually played Newport County and my football manager once. So there you go. So I'm a Newport County owner, really, because I played them in football manager a few years ago.
That's the thing. We could be. That's the beauty of it. Imagine if we start our own team in a small league somewhere. Well, that could be us. Patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. But Newport County, this game, like, the way they played it, they were smart. They were pressuring the ball carrier with 2-3 men if needed, whatever it took. And Tottenham were like, what? What's happening? Why are you doing this? I got skills. Let me have time to play. Nope. And just pressuring and pressuring and pressuring and nonstop. And they almost won, but they still got that replay, and it took great saves by the keeper. And the manager was never even a manager. Like, he wasn't destined to be a manager. His name is, I think, I forgot. He's not destined to be a manager, but the club was in dire straits, and they needed a manager, and he's a club legend. He had 4 stints at that club. And like, okay, I'll take over. Fine, I'll see what I can do. And he brings this league from the conference to the league, and now into the 4th round replay of the FA Cup. Their name will be in the draw of the 5th round. Even though they might not win at Wembley, they still have the exposure of being a name in the draw. It'll be Spurs/Newport County. It is, for me, fascinating. And Duane, the replay is almost even better than the win because you get 50% of the gate at Wembley. And for a club like Newport County, that's going to be millions of euros, and that's years and years worth of investment in the club.
Well, no, the replay actually is better than the women unless they drew like United or City or some big club in the next round and got that draw that way. No, absolutely, it's going to finance this club for years, and it's the magic of the cup, man. Everyone loves the FA Cup for this exact reason. Every year we get a story. This year it's Newport County. Next year it'll be whatever, insert random team here, but good for them. And Wigan, you got to admit,
we'll come to Wigan after.
No, fair enough. I was gonna say, you got to imagine there's somewhere out there. There's some guy that's been going to every Newport County game for like 30 years.
Yeah.
That, and he's just beside himself right now. So I tip my hat. I raise a shot to dude that's been going to Newport County games forever, and congratulations, you caught Spursy when Spursy mattered to you.
The Exiles on their way to Wembley, and that's fascinating. Wigan as well against West Ham. And there's a lot of other great results, by the way, in the FA Cup. You can just Google FA Cup result. Just ask your phone, okay, phone, what are the FA Cup results? And no matter what phone you have, usually it'll say it. But Wigan against West Ham. And that's one rare instance where a League One team, third division, Wigan, was actually favorite against a Premier League side, West Ham. West Ham, a lot of injuries at the moment, and it's David Moyes, the manager. So, of course, they're not going to be favorite for often anymore. But Wigan beating West Ham. Moving on to the fifth round. Wigan, if you remember, a few years ago, they were in the Premier League, and just a few years ago, they were what was known as...
they won the FA Cup.
Exactly. They were like the Reading of this world, where no matter how terrible they were in the Premier League or the Championship, they found a way to get to finals, FA Cup or League. And Wigan, maybe they're struggling still in League... Well, they're actually first in League One right now, but maybe promoted to the Championship, but they're at least 2 seasons away from the Premier League. But they're going to the fifth round of the FA Cup. A lot of money as well, and it's going to help Wigan trying to go back to the Premier League.
I'll fully admit it. When Wigan won the FA Cup, they may have beaten City in the final.
That's why you remembered. That's why you had it off the top of your head.
Yeah, but I was at the City bar, and because it's Wigan, man, for God's sakes, and it's Wigan for God's sakes. What are you going to do? So when Wigan, the final whistle blew, all the City guys just sort of started to applaud. They said, "Yeah, good for them," and good for them to win this stuff. And that's what's great about the FA Cup. That's what we love this competition, because it allows fan bases and clubs that really haven't had much success beyond this. Although they won the FA Cup a few years ago, so that's not cry too much of a river for them, but it allows smaller clubs to excel and have their moment, and it's good for them, good for Newport, good for all the clubs that got it done. It's still probably going to be Chelsea City in the final or something, but alas, it's still good to see this happen.
Yeah, it is still good. Speaking of things that are not still good, we'll take a break and come back. There's a rat brewing inside Duane. I can smell it. And back at the break, we'll talk about it.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at Soccer Today SPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sport Podcasting Network.
So, we made it complicated for ourselves, and when I say we, I mean the Canadian women's national team under 20. They had to beat Mexico yesterday to qualify for the Women's World Cup, and they did not. I guess we produced Golden Boot winners, but we can't produce results in the knockout stage of a tournament, Gold Cup, or in this case, the under 20 Women's World Cup. Wutama of Canada scored 5 goals, won the Golden Boot, but it wasn't enough to qualify Canada for the under 20 World Cup.
Yeah, well, they had 2 chances to get in. They lost to Mexico on Friday, then they lost to Haiti yesterday. So, okay, Kevin.
Yep.
Do you remember when John
Go ahead.
when John Herdman told us that the women's pathway was solved 3 weeks ago when he was being interviewed by on Sportsnet? Do you recall that?
Yeah, I recall that. Yeah.
So if it's solved, should we be beating Haiti or Mexico in one-off games to go to World Cups for our U20 team? Like, this is my thing. I'm so frustrated by this because look, we won back-to-back bronze medals. Canada did. And it was remarkable. We played very well in Rio, and we deserve all the credit we get for that Rio games. But I've talked about this many, many times about how stupidly lucky we were in London. They got a lot of breaks. France had 90% of the damn ball in that bronze medal game, but then, Diana Matheson scored at the death, and they won the bronze medal. Good for them. Awesome for them. But does that indicate that we've solved our problems? No. They didn't qualify for the U20 World Cup yesterday. This is ridiculous. We need to challenge this. John Herdman has put himself in the firing zone by what he did, and we need to ask hard questions. But the unfortunate thing is, Kevin,
he's not there
we
anymore.
can't ask those.
He's not accountable to that side anymore because he's gone now. He's with the men.
Exactly. And also, we can't talk to anyone because the CSA is not giving us anyone. I requested Bev Priestman last week to talk about this tournament. I said, I even promised them, the CSA, that I would stick to U20s. I would not ask them with John Herdman. I made all of these promises. They didn't give it to me. They didn't give it to us. So the fact that we can't ask these questions is really problematic and really making this even worse. Stuff happens.
Accountability,
Sometimes,
right? It's just accountability. And it's not the first time that we don't get a result in the very young side, very young. I don't mean this in a disregarding way, but it's not the first time. Happens all the time. Not qualifying for the Olympics on the men's side. Now the U20 Women's World Cup we don't even qualify for. And we've been saying this a lot on the women's side and even on the men's side to a certain degree. We succeed sometimes despite the way we produce or raise or generate soccer players. It's because of individual ethics of work ethic, individual time spent with the ball on their own time, that people succeed. We need to change that.
Look, I was getting messages on Friday when they were playing Mexico. I was getting tons of messages from people that I talked to that were blasting the Rex program and the philosophy behind it. But they have bought in 100% on how Rex works. They believe that the way forward is to take all of our best players and put them into one program. It happens to be in Vancouver right now, but that's their belief.
In a residency type,
yeah, it's Super Rex, right? Like they take the best players in Canada and they all move them to Vancouver and they play together. To me, and this is what the people that were messaging me were also believing, like it's not preparing them. Like they have talent, they do, but they were not even remotely prepared for the intensity Mexico brought to that semifinal game. And, yesterday was ridiculous. They just couldn't score. Like they were probably the better team on the day, but they just couldn't score. So whether that was an intensity issue, I don't know. But
I just have an amazing analogy, and it might not be perfect, and we hate analogy to other sports, but this is another movie type of sport. Okay, so here, just bear with me for a second, and you understand. The way the Super Rex work kind of is taking the best out of everywhere and making a super team with them, right? So it's kind of like the Mighty Ducks and the Mighty Ducks movie, like Mighty Ducks 2.
Okay.
You take all the good players, you put them, but when they face real competition in Mighty Ducks 3, guess what happens? They fold. Only thing I mean is when you create an environment with like a super team type of, and whenever they train, whenever they play against other teams, they're superior to so many levels to the other players of their own age. It creates a certain attitude, a certain aura, a certain environment where you're never truly challenged because you're always the best. You're always a superstar. You're always the best player around growing up. And then you're taking and putting in a environment where you're always going to be you're playing with the best players and you're so good. It's so beautiful. We're playing the beautiful game so nice. But it's not about that. It's once it gets challenged, once it gets nitty and dirty and gritty against a Haiti and Mexico, and you get tackled and fouled and you're in an environment that's hostile to you, at least compared to the experience you have, and you can't actually dig deep and find that experience level that you wish you would have been challenged before, at least pushed more than your limits, through that boundary of your limits. That's when you actually can, you need that experience, right? And that's what I feel at many different levels of the national team, women's, men, different age group. That's what it is, and it's never the answer. I know it's a lack of opportunity that creates this necessity to make a Super Rex program and to create at least games for them, so at least you control that opportunity of play. But it needs to be different. It needs to be higher. And that pathway of elite playing opportunity for teenagers needs to be there.
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I can't say it better than what you just did, Kevin. Yeah, they're not pushed. It's not. I don't want to blame these players. These players
No,
are
I know.
doing
That's
the
why I
best
didn't
they
mention
can.
one name, because it's not about the players. They don't control the environment they're put in.
No, exactly. They don't. And look, Jordan Heidemann was crying when she missed the penalty against Mexico on Friday. And I feel for her. She's a 16-year-old girl. I'm not going to rip her. I'm just going to say that she has not been given all the tools that she needs to be as successful as she is. And look, we need to take a hard look at what we're doing across the board. And John Herdman is the men's national team coach right now. He has been giving the keys to the car. And look, I can be frustrated about that. I can sort of suggest that maybe he's more of a salesperson than he is an actual coach. And look, he was successful on the women's side to a certain point, but for God's sake, what are we doing? We need to take a hard look at what's going on here. We didn't qualify for the U20 World Cup. We are going backwards. This idea that our women's program has been solved is ridiculous, and someone needs to challenge someone on that. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
So the jury's still out, Duane, but I keep forgetting the name of the monorail salesman in The Simpsons. But is John Herdman them? Or is John Herdman like the savior for Canada? The jury's still out. And even though we had great results at the two Olympics, there's circumstances that could explain those. And it's still not the be-all, end-all. One-offs, when I say one-offs, is not replicated in other part of the game and other age groups. And the success needs to be constant and growing. And it's not. And I don't have the answer still if John Herdman is either the savior or the guy who's going to sink the ship. Because sometimes those two characters are very, very similar, and it's a very fine line between the two.
John Herdman is a very hard worker, and I respect that about him. I think he's a decent manager, but this idea that he's a savior is ridiculous. They got really lucky in London. They have a top 5 in the world player in Christine Sinclair, especially in her peak, that has allowed them to excel. But this idea that they're creating, that they're constantly turning through. I got a message during the Friday game that was like that said, so you figure that what they do is that they keep churning through these young players so that they score against the minnows, and then we think we've got this next great thing. It was highly cynical. It was about this idea that basically they're just putting young players into situations where they'll score a goal because, the women's game is still not that deep. And you can put a 16-year-old against whatever, like a team that's way down the pecking order and have her score a goal. And then we all go, oh, this is the next Sinclair. When in reality, it's not. In reality, we are falling behind. In reality, we are doing a disservice to our women. We are not providing them with the opportunities that they need to excel and to become truly a top team, and we're only going to get it worse. I got another message on Friday that said, quote, unquote, Mexico will be the top team in CONCACAF in 6 or 7 years. And it's because they are putting the work in. They created a league. They are putting their women in situations where they have to step up and excel. What are we doing?
Oh, Duane.
We put them all to...
Okay, for years we've been talking about how the Mexican Football Federation was behind, at least in the national team level, and how they helped the women's game to grow in Mexico. This has changed, and not just at the national team level, especially at the Liga MX Femina that is now in existence, with clubs with a lot of money, like America and company, investing a lot of resources on those clubs. We're talking about social media resources, the stadium. They're playing at Estadio Azteca, for crying out loud. And that's a lot. And it's actually going to help that game grow so quickly that we won't even realize that why is Mexico so much better than the States and Canada? Why? Well, it's because they decided to invest. It's that simple. It's not just money, it's the resources. For Club America, or at least in optics, all clubs are equal, right? In Club America, the way they work and all their teams are equal, and they have a great picture they took last Friday of the entire first team, which includes the disability soccer team, includes the beach soccer team, includes the women's soccer team, and it was an amazing picture. Everyone's smiling. And those type of investment, and it's not just investment, it's a change of mentality. It's stop to be patronizing. Like you mentioned, the fact that you put sometimes player in a situation just to get result, just so an ego can be boosted, or an affirmation of your development technique, even though it might not even be the reality. Well, that's being patronizing. And that patronizing aspect that we have and how we coach our kids throughout all level, all sexes, all type of teams, needs to stop, and we need to be a little bit more pragmatic. We need to be like a little bit more standard based and be like, you know what? I don't think you can be a great player. I either know you either are because you filled those standards and you have a knowledge and a thirst of knowledge and a thirst for this game that is not present with a lot of players. That's how you succeed, and not just because you checked all the boxes of, okay, I did this camp, I did this, I did that. No, you're right. We need to be more pragmatic, and we need to literally take a look at that damn pyramid once again.
Yep, and there's a lot going on within that damn pyramid right now, and I don't know. This should be a wake up call. I fear that I'm the only one screaming about it right now because I didn't see anyone else screaming about it.
I didn't think I would. Like, I didn't think I would get hot, but I kind of did, so apologies. But, yeah, we're not going to the World Cup. I'm quite tired to say that, you know. It's been years now that the words World Cup are always accompanied with Canada and not going in my sentences.
Well, yeah, this is the second. The last time Canada didn't qualify for the U20 World Cup was just before Carolina Veronica got fired. So, look, maybe we should take a hard look at what's going on right now and not just be so. This frustrates me because I see a lot of these people that just think the women's program is perfect because of these two results. And look, I am proud of those results too, and we should be proud of them, but are they sustainable? Are we doing everything for the next generation? I'm not sure. And this idea that we have it figured out on the women's side is ridiculous. We are every bit as screwed up on the women's side as we are on the men's side. We just get away with it because of the depth.
If not more, just because we think we are. You know what happens when you think you got all the answers? You wake up one day realizing you were wrong all the time. We don't know shit. Sorry for my language. But that's life. That's human beings. We wake up and we don't know anything what's going on. We never know what's going on. And if you think you do, you're wrong. So we need to realize that what we do is wrong and trying to learn. Trying to at least, I don't know. It's such a complicated issue because you have, let's take just 2-3 minutes to explain here why it's so complicated. Because you have different type of kids growing up with different type of money, different type of environment, and different levels of game or involvement in the game from young ages. And then you have elite clubs that are saying, "Oh, we're elite, we're AAA. You come train here, you'll be the best, and you'll be the best, and you become there." But if you're not noticed, you won't be part of the Canada, or you don't even get the invitation to take a tryout. It's very difficult. There's not one clear way. There's not a feasibility to everyone to be discovered easily. And some people have agents at a young age that are helping them being quote-unquote discovered when necessarily the talent not necessarily there, but the money is there and they have the money to pay people to get. So it's very complicated at the municipal level, at the grassroots level, never mind at the provincial level, never mind at the national level.
Yeah, it's good for Haiti. Let me just say this for a second.
Yeah, you're right. Haiti. We forget to talk about Haiti. Good Haiti. You deserved it.
With a tenth of what the investment is, they qualified for a World Cup. Canada did not. And look, I'm just frustrated. Mostly, stuff happens. Sometimes you lose. Stuff happens. But the fact that we can't challenge this, that I requested that Priestman, that I have asked, who else is asking for the U20 World Cup coach? Who is asking? No one, just us. But they didn't even, well, I shouldn't say they didn't bother. They gave me one email back that said, we'll see, and then I didn't hear back from them from that. Why can't we ask them what happened? Why can't we challenge what happened? Why do we just have to accept that everything is glorious and maybe this was just a fluke? Like, come on, man.
That's because because people think nobody cares. This won't make the headlines. Well, this did not make the headlines of SportsCenter or Sportsnet Central. This not even make air. This wasn't even on TV, and this was not even popular enough that it's not even mentioned. It's just on the ticker in the bottom. Okay, so we didn't qualify. We lost to Haiti. We lost to Mexico. We didn't qualify for U20 Women's World Cup. This doesn't grab the attention. Doesn't grab the headline. So maybe there's a sense of, we can't get away with stuff. Accountability is not there. That's why we need independent journalism, especially independent sports journalism, and especially independent soccer journalism. And to keep that alive, you can go to patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. Let's keep independent soccer journalism independent. Let's keep it objective. Sometimes not. But let's keep it there. There's not a lot of voices left out there to try to keep accountability present. And that's what we're trying to do sometimes.
Well, imagine if I was down there, I could have asked, but we need Patreon if we're going to do that.
Yeah, but then you would have been kicked out again, and the big security guard like Duane. Okay, I'm just kidding. But sometimes it's almost that. Sometimes the right question needs to be asked, and we're made to feel like, you can't ask those questions when we actually have to, and that's why independent journalism is there, because it permits us the freedom to do so. And that is important.
No, 100%. So thank you for those of us supported us. If you can support us, if you can give us $1 a month, then we really appreciate it. We can continue to do the stuff that we do well. But on that note, I'll stop begging and I'll let Kevin close the show.
You can follow Duane on Twitter, as always, at 24th Minute, and myself at Kiev Laramee. And as always, we'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday. It will be January 30th, and we will have Kartik Krishnaiyer tomorrow on the show to talk about MLS in Miami, which will be announced in about an hour and 15 minutes from now. You can probably watch it on MLSsoccer.com and on their YouTube channel. And as well, you can follow me at Kevin Laramee and find every show we do on demand at sportspodcastingnetwork.com. Until tomorrow, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.